Hey everybody, it's Member of Parliament Bob Zimmer today in the North Peace, Upper Pine specifically, with our Shadow Minister for Agriculture, John Barlow, with Ernie, Hannah, and Wade, grain producers in the North Peace too, and talking about some of the issues around producing grain. I'll turn it over to John. Thanks for visiting the North Peace.
Thanks for having me out here, Bob. And it's really important that we talk to producers on the ground, those that are dealing with the issues every single day, and hear about the things that are impacting you, and find solutions that we can help to address your conditions here, because we want farmers to be successful. You are a critical part of our economy, and we want to make sure that Canadians understand that agriculture is part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we certainly want to hear about the things that are important to you.
Go ahead, Ernie. So what are some of the issues that we talked about, Ernie, today?
Well, some of the issues we talked about today were some of the aspects of carbon sequestration and climate change and things, and how farmers are actually a very important part about climate and being good stewards of the land and providing safe and good food for Canadians, and doing it in an environmentally friendly way, and in a way that provides and promotes agriculture in Canada. And yeah, that's some of what we were talking about.
Perfect. Yeah, and some of the things that John, that we've been working on in Ottawa is some of the costs of this carbon tax to farmers, but you don't get credit for it. So, John, maybe just speak to the cost of what you said too. What is the cost of carbon tax to the average farmer that's coming up?
Yeah, we have a Liberal government right now in Canada that looks at as agriculture in an adversarial way, rather than being an advocate and a partner. And the policies they are putting forward, they don't realize that they have very real consequences. For example, the carbon tax, which we know is not meeting any of the environmental and emissions targets that they've set for themselves. But what it is doing is it is making the economic viability of Canadian farm families very fragile. In 2030, when the Liberals triple their carbon tax, it will cost an average 5,000 acre farm in Canada $150,000 a year in carbon taxes alone.
Just for carbon.
That puts the economic viability, the sustainability of Canadian agriculture at risk. And the other consequences of that is we have double-digit food inflation. And a study by Dalhousie University has showed that by 2030, if these policies stay, the average grocery price will go up 35%. So Canadians are also the ones paying the consequences of a nonsensical carbon tax. Right. Farmers are paying for it. Canadians are paying for it. Conservatives will get rid of it.
Right. Thanks, John. And Hannah, maybe just speak. You're on a family farm here in the North Peace, but you have a job that you work with BC Grains too. Maybe just explain what you do.
Yeah, I became a director with the BC Grain Producers in July, and I've been doing some advocacy for the farmers here in the Peace Country, just specifically with the BC Agricultural Council, and as advisory to the BC government on the new sustainable agricultural strategy that they want to put out. Yeah. And it's really important that we have a voice in the Peace Country, because we are different than farms down in the Lower Mainland. We are not constrained by the population. We need population up here to work on our farms, and so yeah, it's been good, but we need more support, more on-farm. Even just like with the living labs, how they want to do the benchmarks that they want to figure out on our farms, we need that, because there's no way of going forward with this strategy, even that the federal government wants to do, if we don't know what the benchmarks are.
And what Hannah's just referring to, living labs, we were just there in Dawson Creek just a few hours ago. We talk about, farmers, they pay carbon tax, but they don't get credit for the carbon that they sequester. So part of what Living Labs is doing is doing the research so they actually have a number so they can get credit. So at least they can get some credit for what they actually do in terms of sequester carbon and do what's good for the environment. And I'll come to Wade. We're at Wade's farm. Wade Kuzak. Kuzak, a very well-known name in the North Peace. Mostly because of the welding heritage and with Kuzak's welding, but but just want to thank you for having us out, Wade. But we see the challenges. We're even seeing some fire around the area. And so with all these other challenges that farmers face, you still face if everything was perfect, it would still be very difficult to be a farmer in this day and age in Canada. Maybe just speak to some of those things that we talked about in your shop.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and so some of the challenges that face us, the environmental challenges that we really don't have any control over, and the economic challenges that are they're huge hurdles for agriculture. And when it takes many generations to make a farm business viable, we need more support from the government with programming that actually works on farms, and understanding of the hard work that goes into the production of food for Canadians and the population around the world. So one thing that is a real challenge is the succession of the next generation into our farms. And when the younger generation are full of vim and vigor, and their passion is to farm, but yet the hurdles are so enormous that it turns them away from agriculture. It's a sad day for agriculture in Canada. And so we need a government that looks at the bigger picture for humanity, that can keep our agriculture sustainable here in Canada.
Well, thanks, Wade. Again, thanks for having us today. I'm going to pass it on to John for some last messages. Again, just wanted to say a shout out to John for coming up to the BC Peace. Welcome to British Columbia. It's a beautiful place, except for the smoke a bit right now. But John's been just an advocate for farmers really across the country, and I appreciate what you're doing. His private members bill is really trying to provide for some food security for specific situations and on the family farms. But I'll turn it over to you, John, for some last thoughts.
Well, thanks, Bob. Thanks very much for having us out here today. You can certainly sense the passion that your producers have for their industry and their family farms, and that's so important. The federal government can't solve all the problems, but there are some things that farmers are out of your control. Commodity prices, weather, things that we've talked about today. But there are some things that the federal government can give you. A competitive regulatory and tax regime, access to labor, an efficient supply chain, and certainly programs that work for farmers. And I would say that the current Liberal government is failing on all of those things. But it also highlights some of the things that we need to accomplish to ensure that Canadian agriculture and your farm families are not only environmentally sustainable, socially sustainable, but most importantly, economically sustainable. And that's certainly what we're hearing today. And it's great to hear the passion, but also there are some problems that we need to resolve.
So thanks all for watching, and thanks again to our farming families, and we'll see you down the road.